The price of eggs skyrocketing. Retirement funds down. Republicans control Washington. It's a clown show.
Supreme Court will rule in his favor. And my sort of question, which is unknowable, is will he still have such respect for the court and for the justices, and particularly the justices who he did not appoint, who were appointed by Democratic presidents, if there comes a moment where they offer their final word against President Trump and his administration?
Right. But you say, Ashley, and he certainly said it inside the White House several times, that when asked, the president said that he would follow the ruling of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, absolutely. He was very clear on that in two separate conversations, separated by about a month.
So Jim VandeHei, I'm curious, what insights do you gain out of the president's interview with The Atlantic, sitting down with Ashley and Jeffrey and Michael, and some of the things that you've heard here? Again, there's what the president does as far as policy goes. There's what we've heard over the past couple of weeks that the president may be adjusting a bit. I wonder, any indication on whether he's this may be the first of many sort of different tacks towards the media?
I don't think the president really ever adjusts. Like, there's always these stories over 8 years that he's kind of shifting. And he's always a man in full. Like, he is who he is. He's probably one of the least introspective people you're going to talk to. He's like, in his mind, a man of action. And I think the man of action thing, like, gets a lot of people in his base fired up. It also can create a hell of a lot of confusion internally and externally, which he's dealing with now. I mean, listen, to his credit, like, he does sit down with a lot of reporters. And I think every reporter who's ever sat down with him has had the same experience that Ashley does, which is, like, he will engage. All the mean tweets and all the crap that you see on X or social media, you see very little of that in private. He actually will engage you, unlike a lot of presidents. He'll ask you questions. His love language is a little bit of confrontation, so he's happy to have it. He really believes what he's doing. And I actually think the most interesting quote was that quote about Hegseth saying he better get his act together. For him even to admit that his act needs to get together is something he usually doesn't do. And he is aware that the Defense Department right now is a mess, and that is a problem for him. And that's ultimately when you lose a job around Trump. If you start to make him look bad and he can do it on his terms and doesn't feel like he's capitulating to the press, he'll make a move. And I think Hegseth is clearly on a clear warning that if you don't get your act together, you're out, which probably should be the way you do it if you're losing all of your staff and you have a lot of controversy at what is kind of an important department. The Department of Defense kind of keeps us safe, and so you do want sane, smart leadership there.
Important, yeah.
That's kind of important. That's that Midwest understatement by Jim VandeHei. Yeah, you look at the quote again where he's talking about that we just put up, where he's talking about his conversation with Pete Hegseth, because I think he's going to get it together. I had a talk with him, a positive talk, but I had a talk with him. Yeah, you doesn't take a whole lot to read between the lines there. He expects him to get his act together, and soon. The Atlantic's Ashley Parker, thank you so much. Her new wide-ranging interview with President Trump is now available to read online. And Jim VandeHei of Axios, thanks for being with us. How did the Packers do?
It was great, man. How cool is it to see that at Lambeau? It was really awesome.
Oh, I know.
It really was awesome.
My gosh, I know. That was very, very cool. One of these days, you're going to invite me up to Lambeau. We'll have to go to a game
Joe,
together.
we tried to do that last year. I'd love to get you. Lambeau would welcome you with open arms.
You invite me in February, man. Like, let's do like when the season's over. Let's go in September or early October, all right?
Game on.
I'm a Florida guy. All right, game on. I'll see you there.
What did you think of how Pete seemed in his Fox and Friends interview?
Yeah, I don't think he prepared. And honestly, I think that it was probably a bad move to do that. I understand why his team is advising him to do it. You know, he has an audience of one. It's the President of the United States.
I want to ask you big picture before I get to Iran, and that is, you really have kept fairly quiet about the Trump administration, but how would you characterize the first 100 days?
Part of the reason that I've stayed quiet is because I didn't want to be a backseat driver. When I was in the seat, I had a lot of backseat drivers. But when you see the cars start careening towards the cliff, you got to say something. And what I've seen in less than 100 days is terrible damage to America's credibility and trust with our friends and allies, and terrible damage to America's appeal in terms of our political system, our markets, and our innovation. And most of all, what I've seen is China reaping the benefits.
You were National Security Advisor. The Biden administration went nowhere with this, with trying sanctions, you didn't engage with Russia. So now you're saying it's okay to engage with Russia. When you look back, would you have done something differently?
Well, first of all, we did engage with Russia. We had multiple channels to talk to the Russians, and we talked to them
But certainly not in the way they are now.
No, because one of the things we recognized while we were in office was that Putin was at that time not prepared to come to the table to do a deal that would generate a just peace for Ukraine. So we recognized we had to actually build more leverage for Ukraine. And in the closing months in office, we surged military equipment, we tightened sanctions, we seized the proceeds of Russian assets, and we got Europe to come along with us in all of that. So we handed off to the new team quite a bit of leverage for Ukraine to get a good deal at the table. I hope they do not end up squandering that leverage.
3 U.S. citizen children have been deported with their mothers. Now, this is according to the Washington Post. The family's lawyer says one of them is a 4-year-old with stage 4 cancer, deported without medication or ability to contact doctors. The family's lawyers are also saying their clients were denied communication with family and legal representatives before being deported, and it's raising concerns about the issue of due process, that it's being violated. So let me ask you, is everyone on U.S. soil, citizens and non-citizens, entitled to due process?
Yes, of course. But let me tell you, it looks an immigration standing, the laws are very specific. If you're in this country unlawfully, you have no right to be here and you must be removed. That's what the law says. Somehow over the last 20 years, we've completely lost this notion that somehow or completely adopted this idea that, yes, we have immigration laws, but once you come into our country illegally, it triggers all kinds of rights that can keep you here indefinitely. That's why we were being flooded at the border. And we've ended that, and that's why you see a historically low number of people not just trying to cross our border, trying to cross the border into Panama, all the way down in the Darien Gap. I mean, it's been a huge help for those countries as well. On the headline, that's a misleading headline. Okay, 3 U.S. citizens, ages 4, 7, and 2, were not deported. Their mothers, who are legally in this country, were deported. The children went with their mothers. If those children are U.S. citizens, they can come back into the United States if there's their father or someone here who wants to assume them. But ultimately, who was deported was their mothers who were here illegally. The children just went with their mothers. But it wasn't like, you guys make it sound like ICE agents kicked down the door and grabbed the 2-year-old and threw him on an airplane. That's misleading. Yeah. That's just not true.
Just to be clear, because I do want to get to the overhaul at the State Department, is it the U.S. policy to deport children, even U.S. citizens, with their families, and I hear what you're saying, without due process, just to be very clear there?
Well, no. Again, if someone's in this country unlawfully, illegally, that person gets deported. If that person is with a 2-year-old child or has a 2-year-old child and says, I want to take my child with me, well, then you have 2 choices. You can say, yes, of course you can take your child, whether they're a citizen or not, because it's your child. Or you can say, yes, you can go, but your child must stay behind. And then your headlines would read, U.S. holding hostage 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 7-year-old while mother deported. So the parents make that choice. I imagine those 3 U.S. citizen children have fathers here in the United States. Yeah. They can stay with their father. That's up to their family to decide where the children go. Children go with their parents. Parents decide where their children go. Right. The U.S. deported their mothers who were illegally in America.
Mr. Secretary.
If you dramatically burn Medicaid to the ground, you're going to shut down that nursing home. That impacts everybody. Or if you shut down that hospital, that impacts everybody. I'm so thankful, Senator, that you made the point about what we all want for the American people, which I think is that, listen, if you work hard and play by the rules, here in America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, you should be able to live a comfortable life, provide for your family, purchase a home, educate your children, have access to health care, go on vacation every now and then. one day retire with grace and dignity. That's not too much to ask. It's what we want to provide for everyone. But instead of leaning into that vision of bringing the American dream to life, this Republican budget is actually doing the exact opposite.
Yeah, it's doing exactly.
The drilling in the background is underway, so it's stars, stripes, and signal chats. Yeah. Or should we just call it our daily chaos catch-up? So, Gen Y, YouTubers, confused Gen Xers, it's Tony here, your favourite Brit, watching American politics like it, should we call it a reality show? Something like Love Island, The Bachelor meets Chernobyl. It's a mess. I've just spent 24 hours deep in the MAGA matrix, and let me tell you, I deserve hazard pay. I think I deserve a drink, and I'll have a therapist as well. Anyway, let's dive into the flaming circus that is the Trump administration today.
And we all served together. Wow.
And Jared over there.
And Jared over there.
So you guys got hit, huh? Pretty good. You got hit.
Pretty good.
Amazing.
We're in a pretty tough area in Kandahar, in the Arkansas River Valley, right outside Kandahar.
Their unit had a more than 50% Purple Heart rate, sir.
Wow.
In 2010.
You deserve it. You deserve that and more. We appreciate it so much. Brave, really brave, brilliant people. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
Well, spoiler alert, it's worse than the Florida group chat during hurricane season. It's bad. Really bad. First up, Pete Hegseth. That guy's still there, the Defense Secretary, thinks Signal is just WhatsApp for people who own nuclear codes.
Chuck Todd, is there ever a more straightforward sign in Trump world that you are on your way out the door than the president suddenly starting to ask the people around him about you?
By the way, for some of us in the press who've had a on-again, off-again relationship with the president, I've been on the receiving end of that myself. What do you think of so-and-so? I'm thinking about getting ready. You're just like, really? You know, it's the strangest thing when he does, because he'll reach out to anybody on this stuff, right? Like, not just, supporters, because he's wants to know what press thinks, wants to know what, he is one of those. The point is, that's a very bad sign for Hegseth. Because to also translate what J.D. Vance wants to say, the media can't make up a story without sources. What's really the issue for Pete Hegseth is there are a lot of Republicans who never thought he was qualified.
Man's out here sharing military strike plans with his wife, his brother, and his lawyer, and probably anybody else that he's bumped into who's randomly sent him a DM in the same group chat. No clearance, no shame, just pure vibes. You could actually find a group of teenagers playing Fortnite and Minecraft with better operations than they have. Pete, mate, this isn't Fortnite, as I said. You don't squad up before launching a real airstrike. The guy is like, I'm not sure what's going on. How long is he going to survive? Anyway, I survived 24 hours of watching Hegseth trying to explain himself. He's now blaming the leaks on why he did this speech today, Wednesday, had to go at fat people, cultural Marxism. At this rate, the only person he hasn't blamed is his Fitbit, or whatever he does to keep fit. I'm Pete Hegseth, pass the beers.
Square that, and what do you say to concerns that that's bad management?
They were Pentagon employees who leaked against their boss to news agencies in this room, and it's been clear since day one from this administration that we are not going to tolerate individuals who leak to the mainstream media, particularly when it comes to sensitive information. And the Secretary of Defense is doing a tremendous job.
Troops fighting in the unit that many of you will lead are capable, truly physically capable of doing what is necessary under fire. They need to be fit, not fat.
Anyway, here's where the bookers have him. 5-1 he's fired before the weekend. Not bad odds. 3-1 he ends up on Fox and Friends as a national security influencer. I'd have that at evens. Anyway, even odds, if you fancy a little bet. He leaks a game because he thought a burner phone meant it came with matches. That guy definitely has a burner phone. I'm not sure what it is. Google it. Should we move on? Wish Hegseth would move on. Meanwhile, Elon Musk says he's pulling back from his government duties to focus on Tesla. What are his government duties? Oh yeah, he runs dodgy. Anyway, translation, the stock's crashing and he needs to stop pretending to be secretary of everything. Tweeted Alexian or whatever he does, it's AI. Bruv, Elon, you're not Tony Stark. You are what happens when Reddit builds a CEO in a lab with ADHD and a god complex. Basically, Nothing more and a lot less. And now Trump's latest distraction. Ordering American flags to half-staff across the country. You would have thought, well, that's understandable after Pope Francis passed away. But no, flags is very on brand for a man who treats being a patriot like it's Photoshop. He's ordered huge flags, like huge, tremendous flags, that he's going to put outside the White House, because when he gets cornered, just start buying flags like it's, oh yeah, I don't know, you've got somebody's Amazon account and they said, buy what you like.
You said you're going up to launch for a flag. What was going on?
We're putting
What
up
are you
a
doing,
beautiful,
Mr. President?
almost 100-foot tall American flag on this side and another one on the other side, 2 flags, top of the line. And they've needed flagpoles for 200 years. It was something I've often said, you know, they don't have a flagpole per se. So we're putting one right where you saw us, and we're putting another one on the other side on top of the mounds. It's going to be 2 beautiful poles. Paid for by Trump.
Anyway, in case you're confused and thinking what's going on as we head into mid-April, here's your 2025 summary. Hegseth leaking more than truth socials traffic. Elon's hiding behind a spreadsheet. 72%. And Trump's got flags everywhere and conspiracies at full throttle. And as for the rest of us, well, we're just trying to make it through 2026 without losing the plot entirely. Anyway, if you could hit like if you laughed, comment if you've ever been in a Signal group chat with the Defense Secretary, because it appears nearly everybody has, and subscribe if you're tired of pretending any of this craziness makes sense.
Mike, let me just ask you about Pete Hegseth and the Defense Department. Can you do this in what appears to be a chaotic, weakened Defense Department? Pete Hegseth, of course, our Defense Secretary, has been threatening polygraph tests. He's been firing people who we thought were his allies. What is the state of affairs at the Defense Department right now?
Maria, I introduced Secretary Hegseth at his hearing. I've known him for years. You know what? Let me tell you about the soldiers, sailors, Marines that every day come up to me, come up to him. We just had wounded warriors in the office with the president that say, thank God for Secretary Hegseth. Thank God for President Trump as commander-in-chief. Just 100 days ago, we were more worried about DEI and climate change nonsense. Now we're focused on lethality and winning. That's been in just over 3 months the change. And what we owe is the best equipment that is on time, on budget, and lethal to those soldiers and sailors. I'll tell you, a Pentagon that was chaotic was one that had a defense secretary that disappeared for 2 weeks just last year, and nobody knew about it. Pete is leading from the front. He is leading the charge, and he has no tolerance for leaking.
How's he going to replace all those people so fast?
This is a media narrative that we are going to power through. What's that?
How's he going to replace all of those people so fast?
Maria, there's 20,000 people in the Pentagon. There is a record amount of generals. And the other piece there is accountability. We have had several general officers that weren't getting the job done, and admirals get fired and get replaced, including our great new chairman, Raising Cane, who I just talked to last night. That's what that Pentagon needs. No one ever gets fired. There's never a sense of accountability. Now there is, and whether it's leaks or not getting the job done or failures in terms of procurement, acquisition, now you have a leader that's in charge, and I couldn't be prouder of Pete Hegseth.